right, welcome back, y'all. Once again, I am national recording artist J. Henry Live.
He just wanted to take over. Hi, this is India with Designer Accessory Adoption on my channel. We have a special guest who he just introduced himself. This is the guy that I live with. So this is part 2 of our home tips. So we're going to do the last 5. And your turn. No.
All right. Okay. So, picking up where we left off, talking about the home tips, we want to talk about when you purchase, you want to make sure that you have extra money put aside, or at least start a fund, pre-moving or pre-buy and post-buy for unplanned emergencies. One of the first things that happened when we purchased our home was our washing machine went out. So, those are things you have to think about. They happen. We had to spend money on a new washing machine, something that we couldn't fix or get fixed. So, those kind of things do happen. Also, what else happened when we moved in?
So the movers were more expensive,
Yes.
I think, than you had planned on them being. I don't remember why, but they were.
Yeah, so, that's another thing, moving, especially moving from one place to another, or just the expenses of moving, period. There's always that thing that you don't factor in. So you want to make sure you have a budget set aside for that. If something goes wrong, you still got to buy light bulbs, and it's just a whole bunch of things that you have to plan for, instead of just, all right, it's going to cost this to get the truck, it's going to cost this to do this, it's going to cost this. You still have to factor those things that don't happen. Now, granted, when you move in, some things you may get warranties on, but if you do have a warranty, like we were granted a year warranty with all of the appliances and stuff, but after that year, you're responsible for taking care of those things yourself. So while you have those warranties, it's definitely smart to make sure you have that fund, because after year 1, it's all on you. So make sure you do those things. Just recently, our garage doors stopped working, and the warranty was over, even though we had put aside. But one thing you also may want to do is learn how to become a handyman and fix certain things on your own to save $1 here and there. That way you can save that fund for things you can handle, like the roof or whatever, or just certain things that you can't fix yourself. So,
Yeah. And that was something we had actually talked about, was putting together, like, before moving into the home, we talked about putting aside a little bit of money on a monthly basis, yearly basis, to add up to a larger amount later. Like I mentioned in the previous video, we bought something that was a new build. So, of course, we don't have to worry about fixing the roof for another 10 years or fixing other things that may go out a lot sooner on a older home, because it already, basically, I was about to say it was already born, but it was already here. It was already built when you bought it, basically.
it was already born.
So I didn't know what I wanted to say. So that's just something to definitely do. Something that we also are doing, and we do have that wonderful grace period, so that way when we do have to replace the roof, we've already started putting aside money for certain things like that, because we know over time we're going to have to fix those things. So, yeah.
Now, I will say this too, segue into the next point.
What is
One
the
good thing about technology is, in today's thing, with social media and all these different mediums that we have, there are ways to connect with the neighborhood and the community, to stay abreast of what's going on in the community, which I'll let you talk about.
Thank you for it.
Oh, you're welcome.
That segue. So there's an app that, and I'm sure there's probably other ones. I actually heard about this one from one of my friends, which is called Nextdoor. And what he's talking about there is just kind of really trying to get a pulse on what's going on around the area. Because with Nextdoor, if you're not familiar with it, it is pretty much like a neighborhood type of app, where it's social media like, but basically based off of your zip code. So that way, if people are having yard sales or people have questions about a lighting contractor to use or something they need their home fixed for, lawn services, kind of things neighborhoody like that, go on inside that app. And also, there are other things that go inside that app where people are complaining about things, arguing and fussing or whatever. That happens too. But really, the point of that is just to really kind of figure out if you can just sign. If you already have an account, you probably can just switch up your address temporarily so you can just get a gauge. I haven't tried this, but I think you possibly could do that where you just put in the zip code for the home you're planning on purchasing, and then that way you can kind of check it out for a couple of weeks just to see what the conversations are, what issues people are having. So it just gives you a better idea of what your kind of shine a light on what your experiences could possibly be in the area you're moving into. I mean, you obviously have to take some things with a grain of salt. Some people are just going to always complain about certain things. But at least it gives you a better idea in addition to the other tips that we gave about checking out the home and the area surrounding it in different times of the day, different holidays and things like that. But that's also something you can do to kind of figure out what's going on in the area. Also, people who are new to the area will post that they just moved into the area, and a lot of people will comment on their post and say, hey, welcome to wherever. And and you can foster friendships that way as well.
Yeah, also, to piggyback on what you said, there's always a lot of things that's said on there with complaining and whatnot. But remember, if you become active in your community and active in your HOA, you can take care of a lot of those things that you're complaining about. You pretty much control that, but if you're going to complain and not do anything about it, you're wasting your time and your breath, and you're going to keep yourself frustrated. So, but as you said, the Nextdoor app and a lot of things are very good for information needed and to get a heads up on certain things, as well as to get to know your neighbors. So it's definitely a good tool to utilize when you purchase your home.
And even if you don't purchase a home, if you're renting a property, also if you are renting an apartment or whatever, that's something you can also use. Can you read that? Okay, I will say
Look
it.
up.
You want me to read?
Yeah, read
okay.
it.
My handwriting is horrible. It looks like chicken scratch.
Well,
Okay,
yes,
so
it does. I don't know how you can read that.
your handwriting is worse than mine.
You're not reading mine right now.
Whatever. Okay, so the next tip that he is going to elaborate on is going to be pretty much doing more research in your community. So pretty much looking up property records to see the ratio of homeowners to renters. Do you have a lot of investors that are in the area? And I'll let you elaborate on that.
Yeah, that's one thing. It's very, very important that you do that. It has big implications on your property value. So you want to know how many, especially in a new subdivision, you want to know how many investment companies are buying up those properties. You'll find a lot of investment companies do not keep up the property. And, and this is no knock to renters because we were renters once, but you'll find the mentality between a renter and a person who owns their home will be a lot different because the person who owns has a lot more vested and it's not a short-term living situation for them. So, you'll find some things go on where there's more renters than owners. So those are some things you want to look up. I won't elaborate any more on that, but just make sure you pay attention to that. And if you have the opportunity to handle your HOA or whatnot, make sure you put stipulations in the bylaws that may restrict how many renters can come in that area or how many corporations can purchase those homes. And keep in mind, the more times that a corporation or these businesses purchase the homes, it's taking opportunities away for first-time home buyers or people that's looking to purchase a home for a second or third time. It's taking those opportunities away from you to do that.
And also to just make sure that we're clear on just reiterating the fact that we're not saying that just because you rent something you're not going to take care of it, because that's absolutely not the case across the board. But also there are some other challenges when you have more investment property owners versus people who are living in that home as their primary residence. Some of those being if there's things that the community wants to change. So if that is adding street lights or adding speed humps and things like that, or other things, a lot of times you have to have most of your neighbors in your neighborhood vote for that option, basically, whatever it is on the ballot. And that impacts you as an owner, because a renter usually cannot vote. And a lot of times the companies are not going to be involved in options that come up where you may want to change things within your bylaws or change things in your community, and you need basically
Cool.
I keep wanting to say mass wins, but basically majority.
Yeah.
So I can't think of my words right now. But pretty much where you have to have a majority in favor of something, it hinders that when you have a higher number of people who rent, for those reasons like I mentioned, because they cannot contribute. One, they don't have a say-so in the area that they're living in. Even if it's not long-term, they are part of your community, so they should have a say-so on what happens to their daily lives. In addition to that, it just makes it harder for the owners, because you may have to have more involvement from other people, or you may not even get to that point where you get to a majority, depending on what the ratio is of owning to renting. Mm-hmm. And that's the same with whether there's an established community or whether there's a new community, because it is happening in communities that are established as well, where when the sales don't go as quickly as the developer or whatever, not even developer in that case, but if it's established community, but pretty much if sales are not going as planned, companies swoop in there and get the homes. Yeah. But it causes other hindrances to your day-to-day life besides just the on the surface of renting versus owning, just other things as well.
One thing, like for instance, our community, we took over the HOA. Typically, if you don't have enough owners and you have two, let's say you may have a 50-50 split of owners and renters, and this is just a hypothetical, but it could hinder you being able to take over because you can't get a majority, because there's no guarantee that the 50% of owners are going to show up and vote or whatnot. So it just presents a conundrum, so to say.
Yes. So that's just something to think about as well, just to make sure you're just making a fully informed decision, and likely something that you aren't thinking about. So we got two more. Yay. And so the next one is going to be, in addition to kind of like that short-term or short-term living situation, like if you do have an investment company or a lot of companies coming in to basically purchase the home and then they're renting it out to someone, is looking up in your bylaws, also just looking up in the area whether there's a lot of Airbnbs. This in no way is I want to say specific to a certain level of property value, because I know definitely where we live, the state we live in, it's happened in higher, really affluent areas. It's pretty much all over the board, and that is related to Airbnb. So I know that's the new thing where people are able to rent out their homes or rent out their rooms and things like that. And that's just something you want to be mindful of. I know at least in Georgia, it has been on the news in recent years because people are renting out really expensive mansions and having parties. Mm-hmm. And pretty much that's disrupting the neighborhood. So you just have all spectrums of it, where if you see a lot of, and that also piggybacks on the kind of the investment.
Oh, yeah.
I just happened to look up and you were like looking all around like this. Sorry, you distracted me. So pretty much what else? Oh yeah. So pretty much what I wanted to get at is the fact that you just have a lot of traffic in the area. You're going to have a lot of people moving in and out. Also, you just don't have people that are regularly invested in the community itself. They're just there for a weekend, 2 days, 3 days. So definitely check into that to see if you see a lot of that going on, because that will likely be an aggravation to you over the long run, because it's not like you can control who is renting out someone else's home for a short term. You have no idea kind of what the experience is going to be, and so that's just something to think about if if a lot of that is going on in your area.
Yeah, and we didn't talk about this, but this was something I thought about, and it's totally off subject from the Airbnb. One thing you have to think about when buying is HOA fees. A lot of people don't understand that. You need to find out how much they are, what it covers and whatnot, and make sure you pay them, because there's a lot of implications behind either paying or not paying. Not just the fact that you could lose your home or whatnot, but keep in mind those HOA fees keep up the community. If there's a swimming pool, if there's landscaping, just different things that takes care of the community. So make sure, that's something you pay attention to as well.
And piggybacking off of that, and also related to kind of us talking about planning for emergencies and things like that, definitely when you find out what the HOA dues are going to be for your area, or your POA dues, or whatever it's called in the state or the country that you live in, just expect for it to go up. It will not stay the same. It's the same as any other, I won't say like if you get a car, because your car note payment stays the same, but as of any other bill, it fluctuates. It's going to change. Don't expect that your HOA dues, if they're kind of out of your reach or really at the cusp of your budget at the day one, you may not want to move into that home. Reason being is because just expect them to go up, costs go up, and other situations happen where your HOA fees are going to have to rise to continue to support the community or the expansion of that community or whatever is happening. So do not plan on your HOA dues at day one being the same at day 5,000.
And also, and correct me if I'm wrong, you need to find out if you're able to pay them monthly or if it's a yearly expense. And you need to find that out. And, that's something you need to make part of your overall budget. So even if it's, let's say if it's $500, you may just budget monthly for that $500 and just sit that money, whatever you budget, $50 a month or so, and just sit it in an account until that bill comes due, and then you have that money there. So whether you pay it monthly or yearly, that's something you need to put in your budget to take care of that.
And I think what you're talking about is that totally is dependent on the company that's running it, whether they give you that option or not.
Okay.
And then our last one is for you.
All right. What does that say? It looks like it say pay for onion and chicken.
It does not look like that. No, it does not. Okay, so the last one up is something that we actually, at the last moment, thought it would be a better idea to do based off of kind of the advice of our realtor. Like we mentioned probably a few times in this video, we purchased a new build. So that is pay for an inspection. I think it's definitely very obvious for people who are buying an established home to do that, because it's already standing. You want to make sure you're uncovering any unforeseen issues. But for us, the thing that we were thinking about was, well, everything's brand new. So, do we really need to pay for an inspection? And we did spring and decided to pay for an inspection, and I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah, it's it's important to pay for an inspection, even with a new home. Keep in mind, this is done by humans. Humans are imperfect, and we have a tendency to cut corners sometimes, or we just may happen to make a mistake. So we definitely need to do that. Excuse me. And keep in mind, houses are being built in volume now. So, you have crews trying to hurry up and finish one thing so they can get to the next. So being that they're working in volume and working fast and so many things, and you have the opportunity or the tendency to miss something or make a mistake. And the one thing you don't want to do is move in a new house. It's built, you didn't get it inspected, and something goes wrong or something happens, and you're stuck.
Yeah.
So it's definitely important. I'm of the philosophy measure twice and cut once. So it's best to get that extra inspection. Even though the company's going to do theirs, it's always good to get that secondary.
Because one of the things that actually happened with us, with our inspector, was we have a closet downstairs, and the closet was built, everything was fine. There was a light switch, everything was in the, actually the light switch was missing, that was the thing. So the bulb was in there in the little dome for the light cover, but there was no switch on the outside. So our inspector caught that. He caught out some other things too, but that was just one of the things where it could have been very easy for us to miss that. And definitely test everything, test every plug, test every door, look everywhere, take your time to make sure you point out any issues. We definitely tried to make sure we did that. Actually, some kind of way our counter was stained. I think a contractor used some type of chemical that basically did not agree with our granite, and there were purple stains all over, so the builder had to correct that before we moved in.
Also, the light on the fan was cracked.
Oh, yes. So like little small stuff like that, but just definitely make sure you pay attention. I will honestly say I felt like it seemed like they were trying to rush us around, but we took our time, and an inspector helps with that because they're looking for other things, that they're the experts, so they're looking for things that you're not paying attention to necessarily, but definitely make sure you take your time to look.
And just go into this knowing, especially if it's the first time, it's a tedious process. So you have to be patient with the process. You have to take your time, and like I said, this is for most 30-year marriage, and I say that because you're looking at 20, 30 years to pay for a house, unless you're fortunate, to pay it off early or whatnot. But, this is a big investment, one of the biggest investments you'll make. So you have to make sure you cross all the T's and dot all the I's when you're going through this process. Read every single document. I'm laughing now because I think about when India and I were going through the process, we were taking turns reading things. I'd read so many pages and elaborate what was on them, and she'd read so many pages, because you're talking about almost 1,000 pages total with every single thing that you're reading, so you really have to read it and be sure to utilize. If you don't have a realtor, make sure you get a realtor to walk you through the process, because it's things that they know that you'll overlook, and it's things that they'll be able to explain to you. And get a realtor that actually cares about you and not just about the sale. You're going to need to lean on that realtor more than the company you're purchasing the home from, because their primary goal is to sell you that house. And what we realized is they knew nothing. They were not answering questions, and when you asked them things, they couldn't answer it. So you have to get somebody that you trust to represent you, to give you that knowledge. And like I said, please make sure you read, and if you don't understand, ask questions. Don't worry about if it gets on their nerves or offend them or makes them mad. This is your money that you're spending. This is your investment. So make sure you get clarity on everything you need.
Probably saying that because I'm sure I probably got on their nerves all the time, because I wouldn't even sign documents till I was explained. I would send screenshots. I'm like, what does this mean here? Yeah, so I wouldn't even sign things until I knew everything in there, what they meant. But definitely, like he mentioned about the realtor, because I was thinking, well, do we really need a realtor if we're buying a new property? And it definitely is helpful, regardless of how old your home is, whether it's 0 days or 5,000 days.
And just remember, getting a realtor costs you nothing.
Yes.
It's not a fee you have to pay for that. So, it's best to get a person to represent you, and that will guide you through it and care more about the person than the profit. So,
Yeah.
you know.
So thank you so much for watching. If you were just catching up and you're at part 2, definitely I will leave part 1 down below so you can check out that video. Sorry the light's changing. We're trying to film this at the end of the day. And so sorry the light has changed. It's a little bit darker and not really optimal. But we hope that you enjoyed both parts of the videos. We hope that we gave you some tips that you weren't thinking about. If you have any questions, definitely leave those in the comment area down below. And I will see you again next Wednesday when I do another video. Thank you so much for watching. And thank you to my special guest, the guy that I live with.
Thank you all for joining the video, or watching the video rather. Please be sure to follow me at J Henry Live, the letter J Henry Live, on Instagram and Facebook, as well as YouTube. Thank you all. God bless you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.